Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are reviewing Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, the prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, directed by George Miller, starring Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth. The film is an Odyssey-like journey split into 5 chapters, and we follow Furiosa as a child as she is taken from the Green Place, and then the rest of the film subsequently follows her trying to get back there while also taking revenge on the warlord Dementus, who basically is responsible for kidnapping her. I think the first thing to make absolutely clear is that Furiosa is a completely different beast with different goals to Fury Road. Where Fury Road was this 2-hour, tightly paced, claustrophobic, non-stop actioner, Furiosa is much more of a meditative film. It's much more concerned with world building and fleshing out the wasteland and the elements that we've seen but not really explored. And while it still definitely has that gnarly, deranged sense of fun overhanging it, it's much more of a personal, emotionally fueled story. The single instinct that Fury Road boiled down to was survive, and the single instinct that Furiosa boils down to is vengeance. I want to start by discussing the couple of aspects of the film that I think were inferior to Fury Road, and definitely the score is on that list. There's a lot of riffs of musical motifs that appeared in Fury Road appearing in Furiosa, but there is just nothing as distinct or as bombastic or memorable as, say, Brothers in Arms or Chapter Doof or The Chase on the soundtrack. The other thing is that the structure of the film can feel a bit messy and clunky at times, and that is just a natural byproduct of trying to expand the world and visit all these different places. It's much more sprawling and the scope is much broader than Mad Max Fury Road, which obviously was much less concerned with the world building and much more focused on just one journey of 2 characters. But the film is bound to feel a bit all over the place because we're following 15 years of Furiosa's life. And while the chapter structure isn't necessarily imperative, what it does do is allow you to kind of have those mental checkpoints and follow Furiosa's journey a bit more clearly. And there is definitely a slightly VFX gloss that overhangs this film and the general aesthetic. It doesn't feel as practical or as gnarly or as sweaty or as messy, just the visual action. Although a lot of it is clearly practical, there is a lot of VFX enhancements, I think, just to the general background and to the saturation of the sky and the sand. So it doesn't quite have the in-camera finish that I think Fury Road had for a lot of it. But that is it for my complaints. We're on to the praise, because there is a lot of praise. I want to start by talking about the secret weapon of this film, and I think for me that is Chris Hemsworth. I will throw down the gauntlet and say it's a career best performance for him. He has played antagonist roles before in Bad Times at the El Royale and Spiderhead, but I don't think his performance has been anything to sing home about. Dementus is a role that he just hits out of the park. He is hilariously unhinged. He's fun to watch. He brings a brilliant energy to this film that just perfectly complements the wasteland, and you do miss whenever he's not on screen. And I think he's probably my favourite character that this franchise has introduced. The prosthetic nose, the really over-the-top accent, physicality, the nihilistic outlook on life, it is just a brilliant performance all round. In contrast to Anya Taylor-Joy's portrayal of Furiosa, which is very stoic, very quiet, still very emotive, but the 2 performances then have this kind of perfect yin-yang balance. They both bring a completely different energy to the film that both work. But I think because Dementus is such an extroverted character, he just runs away with the film. Then let's move on to Furiosa's journey. The Mad Max films are very simple in story. They are not ridiculously nuanced and layered and textured films in terms of the character development, but Furiosa is a very, very compelling character. It's a very satisfying yet simple journey of revenge, and that all hinges on Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy, especially for a finale that is much less explosive and action-packed than Fury Road, which had that amazing epic car chase to round us off with. The finale of Furiosa, by comparison, is not this action-packed juggernaut of explosions. It's 2 characters in the sand hashing it out and exploring how beneficial revenge actually is and the hollowness that will ultimately come from committing to it. It really brought the film back to the core of what it was about. And for me, I think if you've latched onto the characters throughout the film, it's just as satisfying, just in a completely different way to how Fury Road ended. But there's a fantastic sequence aboard the war rig being attacked. There is a fantastic sequence in the bullet farm. I'd say those are the 2 standout set pieces. It doesn't feel like there's as many vehicles on the road or as much mayhem occurring, but they are still riveting sequences given screen time to ramp up tension and really immerse you in what's happening. There's lots of ingenuity, there's lots of creative application for the action taking place. And while it may not build to a finale that's full of action, the mechanical mayhem that we do get still feels very in line with the wasteland that we all have been familiar with. I think this film also has to be commended for its world building and the power squabbles / war for the wasteland that's occurring in the backdrop of Furiosa is really interesting and provides a great counterpoint to Furiosa's personal mission. She's someone who at this point in her life isn't invested in the broader scope of this because it's not her home, it's not her place, she doesn't care about these people. She's only interested in aligning herself with people who are going to get her close to Dementis. I've got to say Furiosa was the best big screen experience I've had this year for a blockbuster film. It was better than Dune Part 2 for me personally, I've got to say. It's not a perfect film, but it came pretty damn close for me. And considering the director of this film is 80 years of age, putting out action cinema of this caliber, I think it's just hats off all round. So if you have seen Furiosa, guys, do drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Please also consider liking and subscribing to the channel. That is always a huge help for me. And in the meantime, we will see you for the next vid.